There's something comforting about a cabin in the woods. A roof over your head, a fire to keep the cold at bay, and miles of silence in every direction. But once the lights go out, that silence starts to change. You begin to notice the sounds between the stillness. The floorboards shifting when no one's moving. The faint knock under the floor. The quiet footsteps pacing outside your door. And that's when you realize you're not as alone as you thought. Tonight, we'll explore 3 horrifying true cabin stories. Real encounters from people who spent one night too long in the woods. So lock the door, keep the fire burning, and whatever you do, don't look out the window. The first thing I noticed when I stepped out of the truck was how quiet the woods were. No wind, no birds, not even the dull buzz of mosquitoes that usually cling to summer evenings. Just silence. The kind of silence that feels alive, pressing against your skin. The cabin stood about 30 yards down a narrow path, half hidden behind birch trees that peeled like old paper. My uncle had built it back in the 70s, when the road was newer and the forest less ambitious. He died years ago, but the key still hung on a nail in my mother's kitchen. I told her I needed a place to work, to finish the book I'd been neglecting. What I really needed was distance, from the city, from the noise, from the half-life I'd been living since the divorce. I parked beside the porch. The air smelled of pine sap and damp earth. Inside, the cabin was exactly as I'd imagined. One room, wood stove in the corner, cot against the far wall, shelves lined with dusty jars of nails and yellowed paperbacks. A single window looked out toward the lake. By sunset, I'd unpacked, made instant coffee on the camp stove, and written exactly one sentence. When darkness came, I lit a small fire in the stove. The cabin filled with the sound of crackling wood and the faint tick of expanding metal. That first night felt good, quiet, controlled. The second night, the quiet felt different. I woke around midnight to a noise I couldn't name. Soft, irregular, like someone dragging cloth across wood. My first thought was wind, but the air outside was still. I listened until I convinced myself it was the stove cooling. When morning came, I found footprints on the porch. Bare ones. The boards were dusted with pollen, and the prints were clear. 5 toes, deep heel, small but adult. I stared at them too long, trying to make sense of it. Maybe a hunter passed through, maybe kids. But the nearest town was 20 miles away, and the only road dead-ended at my truck. I brushed the prints away with a broom and told myself not to think about it. The next night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the wall sounded deliberate. Around 2 a.m, I made tea and sat at the table facing the window. The firelight flickered across the glass, throwing my reflection back at me. That's when I saw movement outside. A shape, darker than the trees, crossing the edge of the clearing. Slow. Too slow to be an animal. I killed the lantern. The cabin fell into darkness, except for the faint blue wash of moonlight through the window. My pulse was a hammer in my throat. I waited, counting breaths. Then a sound. Soft crunch of leaves, closer now. Whoever it was, they were walking the perimeter of the clearing, circling. I reached for my phone. No service, of course. Another step, then nothing. I stayed like that until dawn, the cold seeping through the floorboards. When the sun finally rose, the clearing was empty, but on the window glass, smeared in condensation from the night's chill, was a single handprint. Morning light made the cabin look harmless again. Dust floating in sunbeams, the lake glittering through the trees. I almost laughed at myself. People pay good money to escape the world, and here I was inventing monsters. Still, the handprint stayed on the glass. I wiped it with a rag, but a faint smear remained, like oil pressed into skin. I didn't tell anyone. There was no one to tell. I tried to write. I made coffee. I even hiked the trail behind the cabin, just to remind myself that the world still existed beyond the clearing. The trail ended at an old fence line. Beyond it, nothing but forest. No cabins, no signs of camping. That night, I kept the lantern lit long after midnight. The woods were silent again, too silent. Around 2, I finally drifted off in the chair by the stove. A sound woke me. Not the drag or the creak this time. 3 slow taps on the window. I froze. The tapping came again, lighter, deliberate. I turned the lantern down low and faced the glass. Moonlight leaked through the birches, silvering everything. For a heartbeat, I saw nothing. Then a face leaned into view. White skin, dark eyes, expressionless. I gasped and stumbled backward, knocking the chair over. The face vanished. I grabbed the axe that leaned by the door and flicked the lantern bright, throwing light over the room. The yard beyond the window was empty. For 20 minutes I waited, eyes burning, chest tight. When nothing happened, I bolted the door and sat on the floor until dawn. I didn't leave the next morning. I should have. But fear does strange things. It convinces you to pretend. I cleaned the stove, swept the floor, forced myself to act like the cabin was still a safe, rational place. I even convinced myself that what I'd seen was a trick of light, reflection, sleep deprivation. By afternoon, I was calm enough to collect firewood. I took the axe and circled the clearing. That's when I found the first rope. It hung from a tree about 10 feet off the ground, looped like a noose, but tied to nothing. The end swayed gently in the still air. 10 feet away, another rope, shorter, frayed, and in the dirt between them, footprints, deep, heel first. Someone had been standing there watching the cabin. I ran back inside and locked the door. The light outside drained quickly, shadows growing long and blue. I built the fire higher than usual and sat beside it with the axe across my knees. The plan was simple: stay awake until sunrise. By midnight, I'd started to nod off despite myself. The heat from the stove made my eyes heavy. Then came the scrape, metal against wood. From the side of the cabin, a pause. Another scrape, slower this time. I crept toward the sound. It came from just below the window, near the corner where the firelight didn't reach. I whispered, "Who's there?" Silence. Then something slid against the wall again, followed by the soft thump of boots moving toward the porch. I darted to the door and jammed the axe handle through the latch. The porch boards creaked under weight. I could hear breathing, slow, steady, then a single knock on the door. Not pounding, just one calm, deliberate tap. "Go away," I shouted. No response. Another tap. I shouted again, voice cracking. "I have a gun." Still nothing, only breathing. Then the sound shifted. The footsteps moved away, around the cabin. I tracked them by ear until they stopped beneath the window. And the face returned. Closer this time, pressed against the glass, eyes wide and unblinking. I swung the lantern toward it. The light flashed on pale skin, stubble, lips parted just enough to show teeth. Then the man smiled. I screamed and threw the lantern. The glass shattered, flame licking the sill. I beat it out with my jacket, coughing on the smoke. When I looked again, the face was gone. Morning came grey and wet. The rain started sometime after dawn. I stepped outside with the axe, shaking from exhaustion. The ground beneath the window was churned into mud, footprints everywhere. I followed them a few yards into the trees before they vanished in the undergrowth. Whoever he was, he'd been barefoot part of the time. I found broken twigs stained with blood. Back inside, I packed my bag. I couldn't risk another night. The truck refused to start. The battery was dead. I'd left the lights on. No signal on the phone, no way to call for help. The nearest ranger station was 15 miles north, too far to walk before dark. I'd have to survive one more night. By late afternoon, the rain had stopped, but the light never came back. The forest stayed grey and heavy. Clouds pressed low enough to scrape the treetops. I spent the hours before dusk moving every piece of furniture I could drag, table, chair, even the empty trunk, against the doors and windows. It felt ridiculous, but the small sound of the chair legs grinding across the floor made me feel less helpless. I checked the axe, edge still sharp, handle smooth from sweat. I set it within arm's reach and sat by the fire, counting minutes. Every creak of the roof made me flinch. At 6:30, the sun vanished completely. The woods outside turned into a single black wall. The only light came from the flames flickering behind the stove's grate. I tried reading one of my uncle's paperbacks, but the words crawled away from meaning. I kept glancing at the window. 7 o'clock, a thump from the porch. I froze. Another thump, softer, like something brushing the boards. I leaned forward, straining to listen. Silence again. I told myself it was a branch. 8 o'clock, footsteps, not rushing, not sneaking, just walking. From one side of the cabin to the other. Deliberate, unhurried, a single person's gait. The handle of the door rattled. I gripped the axe handle so tight my palms burned. The latch held. Whoever was outside tried again, harder this time, then stopped. For almost a minute, nothing. Then a man's voice, low and calm, almost polite. "Let me in. It's cold out here." I swallowed hard, heart beating so loud it drowned everything else. "You need to leave," I said. "I've called the police." A pause, then the faintest chuckle. "No, you haven't." He was right. There was no signal. My stomach twisted. "Go away," I shouted. "I'm armed." He didn't answer. Footsteps again, slow circles around the walls. Every few seconds, his knuckles brushed the wood. Tap, 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 tracing his path so I'd know he was still there. By 9 o'clock, the fire had burned low. I added wood carefully, afraid the sound might mask something worse. The tapping stopped. I listened until my ears rang. For a moment, I thought he'd gone. Then came glass breaking. Not shattering, just a crack, a small corner of the window splintering. Cold air slid through the gap. I raised the axe. The beam of my flashlight cut across the room and landed on the window. A pale hand reached through the opening, groping for the latch. I charged. The hand jerked back. I slammed the axe head into the frame, splintering wood, then kicked the wall beneath it for good measure. My shout sounded strange in the confined space, more animal than human. Silence again, thick as fog. Outside, something moved in the undergrowth, receding. Leaves crackled, then nothing. I waited half an hour before I breathed normally. 10:30. I decided to make a run for it at first light. The truck was useless, but the forest road eventually met the highway. 10 miles, maybe 12. If I started at dawn, I could reach someone by noon. I wrapped myself in my jacket and sat with my back to the wall opposite the door, axe across my lap, flashlight aimed at the entry. At some point, exhaustion won. My eyes slipped shut. When I woke, the fire was out. My watch read 3:17 a.m. The cabin was black, except for a thin line of grey coming through the broken window. Moonlight, and in that faint light, a silhouette. A man, standing just inside the doorway. He hadn't broken it. He'd opened it. I'd wedged the furniture against it, but he must have pushed until the bolts tore free. The chair lay sideways, one leg snapped. I didn't move. Neither did he. We just breathed the same stale air. "What do you want?" I managed. He tilted his head. His face was a blur in the dark, but I could see teeth when he smiled. "You left the window unlocked," he said. "Thought I'd come in out of the cold." I raised the axe. "Get out." He took a single step forward, boots whispering on the floorboards. My body moved before my brain did. I swung. The blade caught his shoulder. He screamed, a raw human sound that filled the room and shoved everything else aside. He staggered backward into the table, knocking it over, and the lantern shattered. Oil spilled, flames licking across the wood. I ran for the door, tripped, and hit the ground hard enough to see stars. The man lunged, grabbing my ankle. His fingers were slick with blood. I kicked free and slammed the door behind me, sprinting into the trees. Behind me, the cabin glowed orange. Smoke rolled through the cracks. I didn't stop to see if he followed. The forest was endless. Branches clawed at my face, roots caught my boots. I ran until my lungs screamed. When I finally looked back, firelight still pulsed through the trees. The cabin burned bright as a beacon, throwing sparks into the sky. I could still hear the man shouting inside, or maybe it was just the sound of timbers splitting. I kept running until the glow disappeared, and the dark closed around me again. I walked until dawn. At sunrise, I found the road. A ranger truck came around the bend an hour later. The driver braked hard when he saw me, mud-streaked, shaking, holding an axe. He radioed for backup. By afternoon, there were deputies, firefighters, questions. I told them everything. The handprint, the ropes, the man at the window. They found what was left of the cabin. Nothing but blackened beams and melted metal. No body. No sign anyone else had been there at all. One deputy said maybe I'd scared off a drifter. Maybe he ran before the fire spread. Maybe. All I know is that when I look back at the ruin before they drove me away, the window frame was still standing. And in the soot on the glass, there was a handprint, clear, fresh, pressed from the inside. They rebuilt the cabin a few years later. New wood, new locks, same window facing the lake. Sometimes campers say they see someone standing there after dark, a man watching from inside. Maybe he never left, or maybe the woods just remember. It was supposed to be a weekend away. No phones, no deadlines, no city noise. Just 4 friends, a rented cabin, and miles of silence. The road climbed higher than they expected, twisting through pine forest until the signal bars disappeared from their screens. When they finally pulled up the narrow drive, the cabin appeared out of the fog like a postcard. Modern lines, tall glass, the kind of place that looks too clean to be real. Maya stepped out first, stretching, smiling despite the long drive. Jason killed the engine and leaned against the hood, grinning at her. "Told you, high-end Airbnb, not a horror movie." Lena, Maya's sister, slid out of the back seat, eyes scanning the woods. Drew followed with a half-empty bag of chips. No neighbors? 5 stars already. Inside, the cabin smelled of new wood and pine cleaner. The living room opened onto a wall of glass that looked straight into the trees. A spiral staircase led down to a closed door marked basement. Do not enter. Maya read the tag hanging from the knob. A handwritten note from the property manager. Renovation in progress. Please keep locked. She shrugged. Guess that's the only rule. They unpacked, stocked the fridge, and opened the first bottle of wine before the sun was gone. Laughter filled the high ceilings. Music echoed off the wood. Outside, the forest went completely black. Around 9, the lights flickered. Just once. Long enough to draw a nervous laugh from Lena. That's not supposed to happen in a brand new house. Probably the generator kicking in, Jason said. They ignored it. By midnight, everyone drifted to bed except Maya. She sat alone by the fire, laptop open, half pretending to check emails. From somewhere beneath the floor came a faint metallic clank. 1, then 2, like pipes expanding after a long day. She listened, waited. Silence. She told herself the cabin was settling, shut the laptop, and went to bed. Day 2. Coffee, laughter, plans for a short hike. The sky stayed low and grey. As they passed the stairwell, Drew pointed at the basement door. Who locks a basement anyway? What, the cleaning supplies might escape? Lena frowned. It's probably unfinished. Could be dangerous. Or it's where they hide the bodies, Jason said. They laughed it off and left for the trail. When they came back that afternoon, the cabin felt colder. The thermostat read 65, though it had been set to 72. Maya restarted the heater. The fan hummed to life below them, deep in the basement. That night, rain started. A soft, steady patter against the glass. Everyone turned in early. At 2 a.m., Lena woke to a dull thud. She lay still, listening. Another thud, from below. She woke Maya. Something's moving downstairs. They stood in the hallway, bare feet on cold wood. The others asleep behind closed doors. The sound came again, metal against concrete, slow and irregular. Maya crept to the stairwell. The basement door was still closed, the padlock hanging straight. She reached out and touched it. The metal was warm. Her stomach dropped. She backed away, whispering, "Go back to bed." Neither of them slept again. Breakfast was quiet. Drew teased them until he noticed Maya's expression and stopped. The warmth from the floor vents was gone again. By noon, Jason decided to check the breaker box. The only access was behind the basement door. He rattled the lock. Manager didn't say it was off limits forever. "We'll call her first," Maya said. No one answered. Straight to voicemail. They let it go for a while. But by late afternoon, another sound came. A hollow knock, echoing from under the floor. Drew leaned over the railing. Seriously, maybe an animal got trapped down there. The knocking stopped the moment he spoke. Lena whispered, "That wasn't an animal." Jason fetched a flashlight. Maya caught his wrist. "Don't. If something's stuck, we can't just leave it," he said. He grinned like it was a joke, but his hand was shaking. He knelt by the lock. The key tag still hung from it, plain silver with the word basement. The metal clicked once, twice, then the padlock opened easily, like it had never been fully closed. He hesitated, looked back at the group. "Guess it's unlocked." The door creaked inward. A smell rose from below. Dust, cold concrete, faint mildew, and something else. Something sharp, like old iron. A single bulb glowed at the bottom of the steps. The chain swayed as if someone had just brushed past it, Maya said. "Don't go down." But Jason was already halfway, flashlight cutting through the dark. The others followed, one by one, until all four stood in the basement's half-light. Concrete floor. Tools stacked on a bench, shelves lined with paint cans and cleaning supplies. Ordinary. Then Lena pointed. At the far wall, behind the water heater, was another door. Steel, heavy, bolted shut. Across its surface, deep scratches radiated from the handle. They stared at that door for a long time, none of them speaking. Jason finally laughed. Too loud, too forced. "Renovation, right?" No one laughed with him. Maya reached for the bolt, meaning to make sure it was secure. When her fingers brushed the metal, it trembled. Something on the other side had moved. For a long moment, no one moved. The four of them stood frozen, the sound of rain above replaced by the deep, heavy silence of concrete walls. Jason's flashlight flickered. He tried to laugh again, but it came out thin. Probably pipes or something, pressure shifting. Maya swallowed hard. Pipes don't shake bolts. Lena took a slow step backward. "Let's just go upstairs." They did, quietly. Jason closed the basement door and locked it again. No one said anything about what they'd seen. Drew poured another drink and turned up the music. By midnight, they had convinced themselves it was nothing. The next morning was brighter, warmer. The storm had passed, leaving the woods shining and wet. Jason fired up the grill on the deck while Maya made coffee. From outside came the sound of Drew and Lena arguing playfully near the car, trying to fix a loose wiper blade. For a little while, it felt like a normal weekend. But then Maya noticed something strange. Muddy footprints near the staircase. Not boot prints, bare feet, small, smudged, leading away from the basement door and ending near the kitchen. She called the others in. "Whose are these?" she asked. Jason crouched, studying them. "Not mine. I haven't been barefoot." Lena's voice was small. "They come from downstairs." The air in the room seemed to thin. No one wanted to check. Jason finally said, "We locked that door. You saw me do it." "Maybe it wasn't locked all the way," Drew offered. "Could have been a draft pushing it open. Floor creaks, dust, whatever. Drafts don't leave footprints," Maya said. They all turned to the door at once. The padlock was there, hanging loose, unlatched. They decided to call the manager again. Still no answer. Maya tried the local sheriff's office, but got routed through an automated system. No service, no signal strong enough for a call to hold. Jason grabbed his jacket. "I'll drive until I get bars." 10 minutes tops, Drew volunteered to go with him. When their taillights vanished into the trees, the cabin felt impossibly big and hollow. Lena sat at the kitchen table while Maya cleaned up the coffee mugs, just to keep her hands busy. "You think it's an animal?" Lena asked. Maya didn't look up. An animal that walks upstairs, opens a door, and doesn't knock anything over. No, they both heard it then. A faint creak from below. Maya froze. They said they locked it. The sound came again. A soft, dragging scrape, like something heavy moving against the floor. Lena whispered, "Maybe they came back?" Maya shook her head. "That's under us." The scraping stopped. For a moment there was absolute silence. Then a single knock echoed from the basement door. Jason and Drew returned half an hour later. "No signal anywhere," Jason said. "We tried 3 miles down." Drew tossed his jacket onto the couch. "Place is a dead zone. I say we pack up tomorrow morning and head out early." "Tomorrow?" Maya said. Someone was inside. "You think we should stay another night?" Jason's jaw tightened. In daylight, we'll be fine. I don't want to drive those roads in the dark. Maya wanted to argue, but she didn't. Night fell faster than it should have. The sky went from grey to black without a sunset in between. The power flickered once, twice, then died. The cabin sank into darkness. Jason found the flashlight and a few candles. "Generator must have tripped," he said. "I'll check the shed." "I'm going with you," Drew said. Maya and Lena stayed by the window, candles throwing weak orange halos against the glass. The forest outside looked endless. Minutes passed. The air grew colder. Then the scraping sound returned, louder this time. Lena clutched Maya's arm. "It's coming from down there again." Maya held her breath. The basement door rattled once, hard enough to make the hinges pop. "Jason!" Maya shouted. No answer. The rattling stopped. Then came the sound of footsteps, slow, heavy, deliberate, climbing the basement stairs. They could hear the boards creak under each step. Lena started to cry. Maya grabbed a kitchen knife and positioned herself in front of the door. The footsteps reached the top. Silence. Then a voice, muffled but unmistakably human, spoke through the door. "Help me." Lena's tears caught in her throat. "Jason." "Please," the voice said again. "It's so dark." It wasn't Jason's voice. Maya tightened her grip on the knife. "Who's there?" No response. Just breathing. Then the padlock lifted and dropped with a soft metallic clink. The door began to open. Maya shoved her weight against it, slamming it closed, then twisted the lock shut again with shaking hands. "Go get something heavy," she gasped. "Now." They dragged the small sofa and the table against the door. The wood thudded with every impact from the other side. "Jason!" Maya screamed again. From outside, faintly through the storm, came his voice. "We're coming." And just like that, the pounding stopped. Jason burst in with Drew seconds later, dripping wet, flashlight beam darting wildly. "What happened?" he shouted. Maya pointed to the door. "Someone's down there." Drew started to move the barricade, but Maya grabbed his arm. "Don't open it." Jason crouched, listening. Nothing now, just rain. "Maybe you imagined it," he said quietly. Maya's voice cracked. "You think we broke a table for fun?" He hesitated, then nodded. "All right, we'll stay in one room, lock the doors. When daylight comes, we leave." They heard it together in the master bedroom. Blankets piled by the door, flashlight between them. No one slept. Sometime after 3, the power came back on. The heater hummed to life. They waited another hour before daring to breathe normally. By sunrise, it felt almost possible to believe it had all been a bad dream. But when they came out of the room, the barricade was gone. The basement door stood open. At the bottom of the stairs, in the dust and the half-light, was a trail of wet footprints leading to that heavy steel door in the far corner. The bolt was drawn, and the door was ajar. Morning light filtered through the tall glass windows, pale and cold. For a few seconds, nobody moved. They just stared at the open basement door. The air that drifted up from below felt wrong, stale and cool, like something pulled from underground. Jason took one careful step toward it. "Stay here," he said. Maya caught his sleeve. "Don't go down there alone." He looked at her, then at Drew and Lena, both pale, exhausted. "If someone's still down there, we have to know." Maya handed him the flashlight. 5 minutes. If you're not back, we call for help, whatever it takes." He nodded once and started down. Each step echoed, hollow and slow. When he reached the bottom, The beam swept across the floor. The footprints were clearer now. Bare feet, small, turning circles in the dust. They led to the far corner, where the steel door hung half open. Jason hesitated, listening. Nothing. He moved closer, shining the light into the gap. A narrow storage room. Shelves, a cot, a small crate. Someone had been living there. Food wrappers, a lantern burned out long ago. On the wall, scratched letters spelled a single word: waiting. Jason backed away, heart hammering. He turned for the stairs, then stopped. The basement door at the top had closed. "Guys?" he called. No answer. He jogged up, tried the handle, locked. He banged on it. "Maya!" Upstairs, Maya spun at the sound. "Jason!" His voice came through faint, muffled by the thick wood. "It locked behind me. Open it." She ran to it, twisting the knob. It wouldn't move. It stuck. Something heavy shifted above them. A gust, maybe, or the old vent in the ceiling. Drew grabbed a screwdriver from the counter. "I'll pry it." He wedged the blade under the latch, pushed hard. The lock gave with a loud snap, and the door flew open. Jason stumbled out, breathing fast. "There's a room down there. Somebody's been living in it." Maya's voice was barely a whisper. "Where are they now?" Jason didn't answer. He turned the lock again and slid the bolt into place. "We're leaving." Right now, they packed in minutes, shoving clothes and charges into bags. Nobody spoke. The air felt charged, like static before a storm. When they stepped outside, the sky was white with low cloud. Jason went to start the car. The engine cranked, coughed, then died. He tried again. Nothing. Drew cursed under his breath. "Battery's fine. Tank's full." "It just won't." Lena looked toward the trees. "We can walk to the main road." It was 10 miles downhill, but none of them argued. They started down the dirt track in silence. After 5 minutes, Jason glanced back. The cabin was barely visible through the trees, a dark outline behind the fog. He turned away and froze. A figure was standing by the deck, too far to see clearly, not moving, just watching. Maya followed his gaze. "Is that?" Jason grabbed her hand. "Don't look. Keep walking." They didn't run, not yet, but their pace quickened. Every sound in the forest felt magnified. The crack of a branch, the whisper of wind through leaves. Another mile and the figure was gone. Jason tried the car keys again, pressing the alarm button out of habit. The faint chirp echoed behind them from the cabin's direction. He was close enough to hear that, Lena said quietly. Nobody replied. They reached the highway by noon. A ranger truck appeared not long after, heading down from the next ridge. The officer inside rolled down the window, squinting at the four of them. "You folks from the rental up there?" Jason nodded. "Got a call about smoke early this morning. Everything all right?" Maya shook her head. "Someone's been living under that cabin." The ranger's face hardened. "We'll check it out." He radioed for backup and told them to wait by the truck. 2 more vehicles arrived half an hour later. The officers went up the trail armed and cautious. When they returned near dusk, one of them carried a small evidence bag. Inside was a set of keys, old, tarnished, and a plastic ID badge cracked in half. The name on it was unfamiliar. "Local handyman went missing 3 weeks ago," the ranger said quietly. "Looks like he'd been staying in that basement." The owner thought he left when the job finished. Lena hugged her arms, staring down the road. "So he was there while we were upstairs?" "Maybe," the ranger said. "Maybe not. We'll know more when we finish the search. He looked back toward the trees. That place has a new lock on every door now. Best you don't go back. They spent the night at a motel outside town. No one could sleep. Sometime around 2 a.m., Maya went down to the lobby for water. As she passed the glass doors, she noticed something on the floor mat. Muddy footprints, small, bare, leading from the street to the vending machine and back out again. She stood there, staring until the automatic doors whispered shut behind her. In the faint reflection of the glass, she thought she saw a shape moving just outside the pool of light, someone standing still, facing the building. She blinked. The reflection was gone. By morning, they checked out early, drove straight home, and never spoke of the cabin again. Months later, when Maya finally answered an email from the rental company, it was just an automated notice. Property unavailable, under renovation. Attached was a single photo. The image showed the basement cleared and empty, except for one thing. Against the far wall, the heavy steel door had been reinstalled. Its bolt was drawn, and in the dust below it were fresh footprints, leading inward.